Hello, Sarah here from smallbusinesssarah.com, and in this video we're going to discuss how to do your Shopify shop bookkeeping within QuickBooks Online. Shopify is its own special little beast. It's a little tricky because people can pay in multiple ways on Shopify, and that kind of can make things a bit tricky. So this is my method for recording your Shopify bookkeeping accurately and quickly every month in QuickBooks Online. It's not the only way to do it, it's just the way that I do it for my clients each and every month. So let's take a look at Shopify and we'll go from there. So in Shopify, this is kind of like your main homepage, your main dashboard. And there's two sections we're going to be working with Shopify. The first section is, let's go to the reports actually. So if we come over here to Analytics and then to Reports, we can scroll down to the Finances section and look at the Finances Summary. So I won't change anything here right now. Actually, maybe I'll do year to date, just so we can get a look at some different things here. So this financial summary is what I have found to be the best tool when I do my Shopify bookkeeping in QuickBooks Online, because it breaks out the components of my sales. We've got our gross sales, discounts, returns, shipping income, sales tax collected, and then a total. So this is most easily done by month. And since the monthly report is the best thing that we have in Shopify, because after all, we're getting deposits from Shopify from all these different sources. So it's really hard to do bookkeeping within QuickBooks Online on a per deposit basis because we're getting deposits from so many different sources. So what I have found is easiest is to do our bookkeeping on a monthly basis within QuickBooks. This method is what I call Shopify Bank Method. And basically what Shopify Bank will represent in your QuickBooks account is the amount kind of available to be deposited from Shopify. Because as you know, there's a delay. There's a delay in the time between when you make a sale and when you receive the money. So this is kind of going to be our starting point. This particular client gets deposits from Stripe, from Shopify itself, from PayPal. That's not normally, she doesn't normally have cash. We're going to skip that for this month. And then Afterpay. So there's a lot of different things going on. So the first thing we need to do is get a good beginning balance within QuickBooks of what we're calling Shopify Bank. So like I said, Shopify Bank is going to represent the amount available to be deposited. Specifically from Shopify, because some of these other ways of getting paid, for example, like PayPal, you get your payments a little bit faster. So really, Shopify Bank is just going to represent the amount from Shopify payments that kind of lags behind. So we're going to go back to Home, and we're going to go to Payouts. So we're going to start as of January 1st of 2020. So basically what we're looking for here is we're looking for amounts that were like sales that were made in December but didn't get deposited until January. And that would be our beginning balance as the beginning of the year. So if we look at this January 2nd deposit from Shopify, it includes a bunch of amounts, a bunch of sales that were actually made in December. So that would be part of our beginning balance. And if we go back, of course, it takes me all the way up to the top. Okay, so we're going to jot down that $44.73 amount, okay? Then we're going to go to January 3rd. And most of this is also related to December. It's not until January 1st that it's not. So if we take our gross total here of 141 and subtract out the 64.80, what's left is also part of our beginning balance. So the beginning balance number I'm getting is 44.73 plus, I'm just going to do plus 141.80 minus this 64.80. And that gives me a beginning balance of 122. I know that sounds tricky. And honestly, this is still an approximation because there's those other payment methods out there as well. We're going to go back to QuickBooks. And if you watched the other video, I show you how to set up your custom chart of accounts really quickly and easily for all of these Shopify accounts that you're going to need to do what we're doing. So if you missed that video, I'll post a link in the description. Head back there, get your chart of accounts all set up for the Shopify transactions that we're going to be recording here, and then come back to this video. Okay, so this Shopify Bank, yours will just say Shopify Bank, but this client has been in Shopify for a long time, so I needed to do an example here. So we're going to go to, I made this Shopify example, Shopify Bank example, and we're going to go to Edit over here, and this is where we're going to put in that beginning balance. So we want to start tracking for this bank account, for this Shopify Bank, which is really like our Shopify receivable, as of the beginning of this year. And our balance, I'm just going to round to 122 because it's an approximation, okay? And then we're going to hit Save and Close. Okay, so you're going to do something similar. Now, if you have just opened your Shopify store, when you begin this whole Shopify accounting, bookkeeping process, you don't need to add a beginning balance. Your beginning balance is 0, and you can just forget this. But if you're trying to get your bookkeeping under control midway through like you've already had your Shopify shop opened, then you do need to start with a good beginning balance for whatever date you're picking up with your bookkeeping here in QuickBooks, okay? Now, I am actually I don't want this to mess up the bookkeeping here. So I'm actually going to, well, I'll come back and do that and get rid of that account later because I don't need it. Let's move on. So there's another kind of introductory step we need to do, and that involves going to sales and products and services. So most of the time, if you have a Shopify shop, you're getting some deposits from Shopify through PayPal. And we need to make sure that those PayPal deposits go to the right place. Now, here's the tricky part. And by the way, I should have mentioned this earlier in the video. I'm not using any sort of an app or any sort of a link between Shopify and QuickBooks. I have found that just makes things messier and harder to understand, in my opinion. So this whole method that I'm recommending is without any apps or integrations at all, okay? So with PayPal, another important thing here, if you are using PayPal for more than one type of deposit or receipt, it's going to make things much trickier for you. So for example, if you are using PayPal for Shopify and you are using PayPal to invoice people separately, your Shopify bookkeeping is going to be tons harder because you're going to have to sort through what PayPal transactions are Shopify and what PayPal transactions are, I don't know, wholesale or retail or whatever. I strongly recommend that if you're using PayPal, only one type of income comes in through your PayPal account. So if it's Shopify, fine. Find a different way to do payments for wholesale or something like that. Also, the more types of payments you have available in Shopify, the harder your bookkeeping is going to be. That's a fine choice. I mean, people like options for how to pay, and maybe that is the best business decision. But the more options you have, the harder it's going to be on the bookkeeping side. So this particular person, they only get PayPal deposits from their Shopify sales. That makes it a lot easier, because what we need to do is these kind of products and services are already going to come in if you've got PayPal linked. And we want to make sure that our PayPal sales are going to the right place. So we want to come in here and do edit. And the account we want it to go to is actually Shopify Bank. You want all of your PayPal sales to go to Shopify Bank. And I'll explain this a little bit in more detail later. So if that is not correct, change that. So if I actually wanted it to be Shopify Bank example, I would actually also check this, also update it in historical as well. That way I can make sure that everything is going to the correct spot. Save and close. And then do the same for everything else, all of these products and services for PayPal. Let's go to banking now, and we'll take a look. Shopify is not easy, and I'm going to do my best in this video to explain what I'm doing, but honestly, it's tricky. It's definitely tricky. So if you're not very familiar with bookkeeping, you may struggle with Shopify bookkeeping doing it on your own, but I'll do my very best here. Okay, so we're in our bank account, the banking tab with QuickBooks. And like I mentioned, the method we're using is called Shopify Bank. And I'll tell you how this all works together later. But you'll see here we've got deposits, Afterpay deposits, Shopify deposits. These are all related to our Shopify store. And all of our deposits we are going to categorize. This is set up as a rule in this one to Shopify Bank. We're going to go ahead and click Add. Shopify deposits are going to go to Shopify Bank. This is all in the received column. Continuing on, Shopify deposits go to Shopify Bank. Shopify deposits go to Shopify Bank. And on and on and on down the line. Afterpay, Shopify Bank. If you have Stripe through Shopify, and once again, if you're using Afterpay or you're using Stripe, I highly recommend you only do it on one platform. If you have a website of have a shop through some sort of app on your own website, I wouldn't use Stripe on both Shopify and your website. Because then you're going to have to sort through all these deposits to figure out what they relate to. Same with Afterpay. If you're using Afterpay on Shopify, I wouldn't then, if you have, WooCommerce on your website, I wouldn't then use Afterpay on your website too. You can, it's just going to make things a lot harder. So all of these Shopify deposits, Shopify Bank, and on it goes. Down here, we have our Shopify fees. So the Shopify fees can be like your monthly fee, and then sometimes like the shipping expense if you're shipping, printing labels. And so in the chart of accounts video, we already created accounts for Shopify monthly fees and Shopify shipping expense. So just categorize these Shopify expenses to whichever category that applies to. So we're going to go ahead and click Add on the Shopify fees. Okay, so far, this part is easy. If you're not confusing things with the too many payment methods in too many places. Now let's go ahead and take a look at PayPal. PayPal is not too bad either if you're only using PayPal from one source which in this case is Shopify. And because we have already set up the product and service over here in the sales section, product and service, we set all of our PayPal stuff to go to Shopify Bank. We already did that. Then QuickBooks is remembering that, and they're suggesting the Shopify Bank category for all of these deposits, which is exactly what we want. And you'll notice too that PayPal is already, and let me scroll a little so you can see, PayPal, is already breaking out the PayPal fee. So we don't have to worry about that part of things too, which is nice. So all of this is good to go on the PayPal side because we took the time to do the products and services over here. One thing, let's pretend that this was not Dropbox. Let's pretend that this is actually like somebody's name. If this is somebody's name and it's in the spent column, there's a good chance that that is a refund, a Shopify refund to somebody who paid with PayPal. And you can check that in the financial summary, clicking on the refunds. I'll show you that when we get there. And if that's the case, then you want to categorize this to your Shopify refunds account. You've already created that account if you did the other video and set up your Shopify chart of accounts. So that's the only refund you're going to see on the QuickBooks side, is if there is a PayPal refund related to Shopify, somebody who paid with PayPal initially in Shopify, and then the refund gets issued from PayPal too. And that is going to be categorized to Shopify refunds, but double check it on the Shopify side. And I'll show you that in a minute, like I said. So all of this is also going to be easy. We're just going to add, and add. Okay, that's all going to Shopify Bank. All right, let's go back to Shopify. And we're going to go back to Analytics, Reports. We're going to go down to Finances, to the Finance Summary. And the month we're going to do is January 2020. So we're going to click here, and we're going to set our dates. So we have a monthly report for January of 2020. Let me go over the refunds real quick. So if you click on returns here, you can see then the deposits or the returns that make up that amount. If the returns, see how this is like larger than the 20 that showed? These are often like shipping refunds, and that gets deducted out of shipping. But you can see from here then, is what I saw in PayPal a refund from Shopify, yes or no? You can come here and determine that. Okay, let's go back. So on this screen, we're going to write down our monthly numbers because this is the best report we have in Shopify that summarizes all of our activity from all the different methods that we're making payments. So on a sheet of paper, write down gross sales, less discounts, less returns, net sales, shipping, sales tax, and total. You're going to write that all down. And those are the numbers that we're going to use in our monthly journal entry. You don't need to write down any of this. In this month, these two numbers agree. Sometimes they don't. Don't freak out about that. It's just a timing difference. We are going to need some information if we got Afterpay fees for the month or Stripe for the month. In this case, Stripe was just an old refund, so she didn't make any Stripe sales that month. Okay, so we're jotting all of this down. We're not worrying about this. There is, let's see, I'm trying to decide what order to go in. Okay, so let's do our collecting of information. Let's do all of our collecting of information, and then I'll show you how it all works together. So from here, we're collecting all of this information that you write down. Then we need one more piece of information from Shopify. We need the Shopify Transaction Fees. So we go to Home, we go to Payouts. We go to January, and we write down, we add up all of these fees for January. So these are all the transaction fees from Shopify. So like this is the gross deposit less the fees. This is your net deposit. So we're going to write down or add up all of these fees, and these total $29.04. And you write this down. For the month you're doing, total up the fees and write that down. I ignore this column, these adjustment columns, because it seems like these adjustments are picked up in other parts of that report, of the financial summary report. So I ignore any amounts in these two columns and I just focus on this column. Okay, the other thing we need is if there was a Stripe fee, Stripe processing fee, and Afterpay fee. So you'll need to go into your Afterpay account in this case, and you need to add up your fees. So we add up $392 plus $242. That equals $635, and no, it doesn't. It doesn't equal $635, but that's what I wrote down. Oh, I know why. Because if we move this out, no. If we go like this, there we go. There's more digits behind it. That's why it's $635, even though it ended in twos. So write down your Afterpay fee for the month of January. Okay? Then if you have Stripe, go to Stripe. Now, she didn't have any February Stripe sales. January. This is the February report, so we're not going to actually use this number in our entry, but I wanted to show you what it'll look like. So Stripe will have these reports too, the sales, and then less the fee. And you want to add up all the Stripe fees. So if we go back to here to Shopify, we have taken care of all the different types of fees now. We've taken care of the Afterpay fee, the Stripe fee, if there is one, and the Shopify fee, and the PayPal fee is automatically being taken care of for us with each deposit. So now we're going to go back to QuickBooks. All right, I'm sure you're very confused, and hopefully this will all start to make sense in the end. Before we get started with our monthly journal entry, we're doing one monthly journal entry. We're going to actually run a report. We're going to run a profit and loss. We're going to run a profit and loss report for the month that we're doing. So this is profit and loss for January of 2020. And what we're looking for here is if we already have any amounts recorded for Shopify sales already or refunds. Most of the time it'll be refunds. So we don't want to double count things if they're already recorded. So in this case, we just need to jot down the $593 refund amount that we don't want to double count. That was a PayPal refund amount that we have already recorded. Sometimes PayPal will be glitchy and it could record some PayPal sales here. And this will alert us to that as well. Okay? So let's now do our journal entry and then we'll see how this all works together. So monthly journal entry. We're going to go to new and journal entry. And the date we're going to do is as of the end of the month. So this is January 2020. So our journal entry is going to be January 31st of 2020. We're going to just keep going down the line. And this was actually, I had to delete it. This was actually number 4. Okay, so let's start typing. We're going to start typing our Shopify income. We want to get that. So Shopify product sales, subaccount of Shopify income. That's going to go first. And remember, if you don't have these accounts already here, you need to go back to my chart of accounts video. So remember, we wrote down gross sales of $2,613.37. Now we want our discounts. Shopify discounts. Discounts are going to go in the debit column. Your sales are going to go in the credit column. So just follow exactly what I'm doing for your numbers. So Shopify refunds, we had written down 20, but then when we ran our profit and loss, we saw $5.93 there. So we need to just get that up to 20. So we take 20 minus 593, and that equals 1407. That's our refund amount. Refunds go in the debit column. Now we need our shipping income, Shopify shipping, and let's see, Shopify shipping income. Shipping income is going to be a credit. Now we need our sales tax. Okay, so those are the basic numbers that we pulled from the Shopify report. Our sales, discounts, refunds, shipping income, sales tax payable. Now we need to add the fees. We're going to do our Shopify transaction fee of $29.04. And that's what we added up from the payout page. We also have Afterpay fees. Oh. Of $635. If we had Stripe, we would add the Stripe fees, and that amount would go here. Okay, so now in accounting, your debits and your credits at the end of every transaction, every journal entry in accounting, debits and credits have to agree. So the difference between our debits and credits is something that QuickBooks is going to calculate for us. You may have noticed while I was doing it, it would fill in random numbers as I was going along, and I just ignored them. That's because QuickBooks is trying to balance my journal entry for me. And at the end of the journal entry, that's nice. Shopify Bank is what I want. I'm just going to kind of tab over, and QuickBooks filled in that number for me, which is what I want. So the difference between let's see, what's happening here. We have our cash in items. So our cash in include our sales, our shipping income, and our sales tax. That was money in. And then we have our debits over here, which is our money out, our discounts, our refunds, and our fees. And what's left, Shopify Bank represents the amount of money available to be deposited for the month. Okay, let me say that one more time. Shopify Bank in this journal entry represents the amount of money available to be deposited for this month. So that's the number we want. We're going to hit save and close. Okay, so now we're back to our January 2020 profit and loss statement now that we have posted our monthly entry. And if you'll look, all of our wonderful numbers agree to our the amounts that we pulled from the Shopify report. Here's our gross sales amount. Here's our discounts. Refunds agrees. Shipping income agrees. So you can tie out what you've posted your journal entry to Shopify and make sure it agrees. So we know that in total, like, we've got the right numbers. Those monthly numbers were pulled directly from Shopify. Now what we need to look at is that Shopify bank account. And I'll explain a bit more when we look at it, what it means and what it represents. So if we go to banking, and then we go to register. Up here, I know it's above your screen, but I'm clicking on the gray arrow drop-down box, and I'm going to go to Shopify Bank. And let's go to January. Lots of Shopify transactions. I might need to go 2 over. Let's go to page 5. Nope. Page 7. Page 9. Okay, we're almost there. Next page. Okay, so as of trying to find the journal entry. I thought it would be at the very end, and it looks like it's going to be at the very beginning of January 31st. Okay, that confused me for a second. Okay, so she had a lot of transactions on January 31st, which makes this a little bit confusing and hard to see. But basically, you'll recognize this is the amount that we recorded in our journal entry to Shopify Bank, okay? So that's, and everything, all of the other transactions throughout the month, you'll remember all of the PayPal deposits that were from Shopify, we recorded to Shopify Bank. All of the deposits in our checking account, we categorized as Shopify Bank. And Shopify Bank has nothing to do with the fact that even though it's coming in through your bank account or through PayPal, we're still categorizing it to Shopify Bank because Shopify Bank in this case represents the amount available to be deposited still left at Shopify. So don't let the bank terminology confuse you. We could call it Shopify holding. That's what some people call it, a holding account. Shopify receivable. That works just as well. So don't let the terminology confuse you. But these are all of the deposits that we made from our banking tab to Shopify Bank throughout the month. And a lot of these are from PayPal. That's why they've got this, this thing going over here. Okay? So then after we take into account, I wish this would be at the very end of 131. Okay, so this is saying then, as of 131, if we pulled up our balance sheet, it would show as of 131 in Shopify Bank, $487.77. So is that somewhat reasonable? Okay, let's come take a look. So if we go back to Shopify and we're on the payouts, you'll see that on February 4th, she had a big payout. If we click on it, you'll see that most of this February payout of $494 was from January. Just a few transactions were from February. So back to QuickBooks. Is this somewhat reasonable? The thing with Shopify, which is different from Etsy, if you do this method for Etsy, in Etsy, there is a clear number that we can make sure we tie to at the end of the month to know that our entry was good and everything is as it should be. In Shopify, there's no specific number because this in Shopify just represents Shopify sales that are left to be paid out. Over here in QuickBooks, we're taking into account Shopify deposits, PayPal deposits, Afterpay deposits, Stripe deposits. So I suppose we could go to a lot more effort digging into each deposit from each source. Everything is a timing difference. So I feel like if I can just make sure this is somewhat reasonable, it's going to fluctuate up and down. But the Stripe deposits, if it didn't get deposited this month, it's going to get deposited next month. This is really just a reasonableness estimate. I wish there was an easy number to tie out to in Shopify. That would make everything so much nicer. But the problem with Shopify is it's so many different sources that are depositing. So the fewer sources you have, the easier and more accurate you can be. The more sources of payments you have, the trickier it is. And the harder it is to judge whether we're right at the end of the month. But remember when we looked at our profit and loss, our numbers in our profit and loss for the month exactly tie to Shopify. And we're running our difference through Shopify Bank because Shopify Bank, like I said, these are all of the deposits that we received: PayPal, Afterpay, Shopify, Stripe for the month. That all is going into this Shopify Bank account. But then we record our monthly journal entry, which represents all the amounts available to be deposited. And then it's like we're taking out what was available with each of these transactions that we categorized in the bank feed. I know this is not easy to understand. If this doesn't sink in with you, maybe there's a method out there that will. But this is the easiest, fastest way that I have found to do Shopify month after month for my clients. You'll notice that that's why it's negative here. It's because we're, depositing things throughout the month to Shopify Bank. We're not depositing, categorizing to Shopify Bank. And then this fills up our bucket. This represents filling up our bucket that was available to be deposited for the month. And then this was what was lowering our bucket each month. If you have questions, I'm sure you will, leave them in the comments. I will do my best to answer them. But Shopify, there are so many different scenarios that can be happening. And if you've tried to use an app in the past to link Shopify to QuickBooks, it could be really doing some interesting stuff that can be difficult to untangle. So I'll do my best to answer your questions in the comments on YouTube. Leave them there for sure. But just know that Shopify is tricky. It's trickier than Etsy. It just is. So I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but Shopify bookkeeping can be tricky for sure. I hope this really helps. I hope you can wrap your head around why I do the Shopify Bank Method, so that we can tie to those monthly reports in Shopify. If this video is helpful, I would appreciate your like and your subscribe. It really means a lot to me. You can find other information about small business bookkeeping, especially for online business owners like Etsy sellers, Shopify, Amazon, and bloggers on my website, smallbusinesssarah.com. Okay, thank you.